Hey guys, I'm back. I haven't done a live in-person video for a while. It's been I've done a whole mishmash of I keep posting things up from my distant past and recent history, music stuff. And I feel like I should be coming on more often, but I've got these large, vast quantities of music of things that I haven't shown. And yet I keep, and today is no exception, I keep on showing the same few things over and over again. But, I'm making an attempt here to do a video that's not 11 and a half hours long. And for me, that's hard sometimes. So, I'm scaling it down. I had an idea to do a series, but I don't know if I can really do the series. And calling it my favorite, and breaking it down by instrument. So it would be like, for instance, my favorite, saxophone album, say, or my favorite guitar album, doing that kind of thing. My favorite percussion album, my favorite drum kit album, based on instruments. The fact is, I don't think I can do any of those because the only one that I have that I can absolutely pin to be my absolute favorite by a single instrument is the album I'm about to show, which I've actually spoken about before. And that is my favorite organ album, electric organ or Hammond organ, which is Terry Riley's Lifespan. It's a movie soundtrack. One of those albums that changed my life, actually. Nice photo of Terry playing a duo keyboard. I guess it's a Hammond organ, I'm not sure. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. Definitely my top 3 albums of all time, probably. But it's also my favorite album of electric organ music. And also the first album I ever bought by Terry Riley. I had no idea who he was. This is before the days of the internet, guys. I bought this in 1978. And because it's a French import, and the soundtrack is a European movie, I thought I had no idea Terry Riley was an American composer. I'd never heard of In-C before. I was like 18 or so years old at the time. So I knew nothing about him. And I was just, getting out of rock music and the progressive rock, and I was looking for the next phase, the next stage. This is before I even got into ECM jazz, really. Probably by months, not by a whole long time, but probably a few more months, or maybe up to a year, short of a year, before I even discovered my first ECM album and all those artists in that Euro jazz kind of category. And so, I got bored with all this stuff that was progressive rock wasn't, I wanted the next step, the next stage. And, excuse me. I'm choking here. Good thing I brought coffee. Cup number 2 today. I'm going to be sorry that I drank a second cup. I'm sure my stomach is going to freak out on me. Terry Riley Lifespan. Now, it's not really like an organ demonstration record, but it appears that the only keyboard on here, and keyboard's the main instrument, is an organ. And the thing I love about it, it's recorded really well. Oddly, my favorite Terry Riley music ends up being something that's recorded as a soundtrack. But it's such fantastic music, and it's the album that more than any other, and I had a lot of albums that I really was waiting to be reissued on compact disc. But this is the one that I waited the longest for, and I really gave up hope that it was going to ever come out on compact disc. The original album release was pretty obscure. I think it was released on 2 different occasions. I have the 78 edition, which I bought in 78, but it actually came out before, because the original recording was from about 1975. And it's playing in the background, and I don't know about the copyright issue with this or not. I'm taking a chance. I loved the soundtrack so much that many years later, 20 or more, 25 years later, I actually chased down a video cassette copy of the movie, just because I wanted to see and hear how the music was used in the context of this kind of sci-fi, kind of, not really sci-fi movie, almost like an investigation with some supernatural overtones to it, a bit like X-Files, long before the X-Files came around, type of movie. And oddly enough, I kind of spent a lot of money for a video cassette that was still sealed, but, you know, over the years, the video cassette, which had come out probably in the early 80s, the picture had deteriorated, like, I guess got, you know, demagnetized or something, because the picture was full of lines and all that, kind of like if you pull an old videotape down off the shelf that's recorded a long time ago and it's kind of starting to partially erase. So the video quality was really awful. And wouldn't you know, oddly enough, a short time after I kind of laid out bucks for the video cassette, it got released on DVD. Naturally, I had to buy the DVD. Finally got to see the picture in a better quality. But the highlight of the DVD, the movie's actually really good. It doesn't have an ending. That's what pisses most people off. But kind of leaves you hanging. But the nice thing with the DVD is there was an interview with the director, who actually just passed away in the last year or two, talking about the movie. And he also talked about the soundtrack a bit on there, which was the real highlight for me. And there were some still frames on the DVD, and this is one of them from the back of the album, of pictures taken during the sessions that the soundtrack music was recorded. And you actually see Terry Riley talking to the director. The director was in the studio when Terry Riley was creating the music. And I don't think the movie was cut, or that Terry Riley actually saw the movie. I believe the director actually was giving him a description of what the movie is about and the mood he was looking for. I seem to remember, I could be wrong with that, but I don't think Terry Riley actually saw the movie prior to making the soundtrack. So he was kind of given an idea of the mood that the film director was going for. Now, the organ is the featured instrument, but Terry does, in the days before sampling and sequencers really were around very much and used commonly, Terry Riley had come up with his own system that, I don't know how he did this because I've never seen a demonstration of it. He could play something on the keyboard and kind of like create a loop of something that he was playing and do this live and create a loop of a phrase so that the phrase repeated. Now, how he chose where the phrase began and end and did that in a live context, I don't know. But he did it with the organ. And he would play a phrase on the organ, a line, and have it repeat and then solo over it. So a very hypnotic thing that he got going. He does that a bit on here. But he doesn't alter the sound at all. So the sound is very purely the organ sound that he was using. It's not processed or changed with effects or anything. But so he does a little bit of that, like sampling that early sequencer system that he had created himself, which is very fascinating to hear. Apart from that, it's really well recorded, and the organ sound changes from track to track. I believe this is an old-fashioned kind of, this big-ass organ that's got all those drawbars on there. And if you know what you're doing and you play around with the drawbars, you get different sounds. Not like a synthesizer as much, but some of the sounds are more reedy, like a wind instrument. Others are more thick, like almost an electronic synthesizer sound, a softer sound. And then there's some where the organ's very percussive, so that as each key is pressed, you hear a percussive sound. And Terry uses a lot of these different organ settings. So it's not the same sound throughout each and every track. Each track is subtly different with the organ settings that he uses. And sometimes he uses different settings on the same track. He'll have this kind of repeating sequencer type thing set up, and it'll be maybe a percussive organ line, and over that he's playing these very soft chords. So it actually sounds like there's a couple different instruments going on there, which makes it very interesting. It's only 30 minutes long, the whole soundtrack, so it's quite short. And to that, there's a little bit of voice that he adds, a little bit of soprano saxophone at times, all of which are really well used. and one or two tracks. I think there's only one track has tabla drums on it. There's no credits on this. I actually sent an email to Terry Riley's website asking him if anybody else plays. I know that's Terry Riley's voice I hear. I'm sure it's Terry Riley's soprano saxophone. I'm not sure if it's Terry Riley playing tabla. I know he studied a lot of Indian music, but the whole tabla thing was he would kind of have to record the tabla drums first and play the organ along with it. And so I don't know whether or not he's playing the tabla on this. It's something I've wondered since 1978. So around 2007, I want to say, after loving this album for years. Well, I should say, when I got a computer and we finally got the technical ability to put a record on the turntable and load it into your computer and burn it onto CDR, which was when probably late 90s or so. This is the first album that I did that with, that I burnt onto a CDR. Now, about 2006 or 7, I discovered another Terry Riley soundtrack album called Happy Endings, done to a French movie that I won't try to pronounce. La You Fermes. And that was a film from 1972, so a few years before the Lifespan movie. And I had no idea that this album existed. You know, it's got the trusty old Gem Records import sticker on it. And I found this on the internet. And oddly enough, I had no idea it was around, and kind of ordered it, not knowing much of it. And it came, and it's there's about 18 and a half minutes. Each side is a single 18 and a half minute long, typical Terry Riley keyboard organ type piece. That's really nice. That supposedly was used for this movie soundtrack. Now, this movie I know nothing about and I've never seen. Not quite up there with Lifespan, but, you know, the Lifespan album or the Lifespan soundtrack, but then again, to me, nothing is. But this was really great, and when I got this, I actually copied the vinyl, again, into my computer, and because the Lifespan album was only 30 minutes long, I dumped these two together onto one CDR, which made a nice long, it's like 67-minute album. Oddly enough, just like when I bought a video cassette of the movie, and shortly after I bought the video cassette, the DVD of the movie came out. I bought that Happy Ending soundtrack album. Shortly after that, in 2007, the album I have most been waiting for to be issued on CD came out. Oddly enough, not only did the Lifespan soundtrack come out on CD, but it was paired with the Happy Endings soundtrack from 1972, just like I had burned them onto my CDR. So those two albums came out together. Right after I had laid out a decent amount of cash for the Terry Riley Happy Endings soundtrack album, which I didn't know had existed prior. Some liner notes. You know, I'm so tempted. I should buy another copy of this before it goes out of print. There's, again, the picture from the inside of Lifespan album. I was just so thrilled to have this on DVD. And, you know, just there's the middle thing just has the individual song pieces, the credits playing in the background. This music really, I can't tell you why this is my favorite organ album. I just like the sounds. I like the variety of sounds. Of course, there's no other keyboards in there, so, you know, the primary thing is really the organ. The voice and saxophone and tabla is minimal in there, and adds a great coloring to the album. I'm glad that they're there. But really 95% of what you're hearing is all coming from the organ. And maybe Terry Riley's kind of delay system that he's got set up. And it just is one of those albums that it's like, I could just space out listening to what's going on right now and just completely like I'm on a drug trip type of thing. Brilliant album. I like it better than In C, even, his classic work. And it seems like every time I pick up an album that I'm always looking for a lot of organ-related, primarily organ-related instrumental discs. This is the thing I always compare them to, and I haven't found anything, even Terry Riley's own work, that quite measures up for me. And I had an idea, and I just wanted to expound on that. I know I've talked about my love of this album before, but I don't really, I'm at a bit of a loss because most of the things I've been listening to lately are the same things for the last month or so. The recent spins is probably the most common type of video we do, or new discoveries or something like that. I haven't really discovered too many new things lately. So I thought I would come on live and do that before you all think I'm dead or something. It's kind of horribly overcast now. The winter cold is finally getting here, though it was almost 50 degrees as a high a few days ago. Now we're like in the 30s or 40s, whatever. There's a light snow going on outside, which makes me not really want to go out and do things. But there's some things that need to get done. So anyway, I thought I would talk about if I ever hear anything from the Terry Riley camp about the instrumentation on that, because no other musicians are credited on the Lifespan album. The Happy Endings album is very obviously all Terry Riley. It's just that tabla playing I'm not sure of on the Lifespan album. I like to credit whoever does it, even though it's minimal, if it's not Terry himself. So that's what's going on. It's a new year. I hope this new year hasn't started off great, but it's early, so there's time for it to be better than 2016. I hope. So that's it. I'm keeping this under 17 and a half hours. I like most of my videos, and I'll find some subject. I don't think I could do my favorite saxophone album, or my favorite drum kit album, or my favorite synthesizer album. But I might come back and show favorites, that would be multiples. But the one that really stands out for me in organ, there's nothing that comes out a close second, so I thought I would do that. And I was going to say my favorite organ is actually the Brain. This is Brainy's Brain, but I forgot to show that at the beginning, so I'll show it now. Okay, guys, that's it. Hope you're doing well, and I'll be back eventually with something or other. Take care.